Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Matt's Bookshelf, and today I'm talking about Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. This is my first Ernest Hemingway novel, and now having read it, just as a little spoiler to how I feel about it, I'll probably be reading much more Ernest Hemingway in the future. This is a book written during the Lost Generation, and it follows the themes of that era pretty well, in which it has characters that, in the wake of World War I and experiencing the brutality of that war, are morally and spiritually lost and wandering in their lives. Another good comparisons to this kind of literature would be F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby and all of his works in general. So as a general review for this book before I get into my real discussion, I just want to say that The Sun Also Rises really sticks with me. It did take me a while to get used to Ernest Hemingway's writing style. It's very blunt, and I know that his philosophy on writing is that whenever you don't know what to write, whenever you have writer's block, you just write a truth, and that will help you continue to write. And that's definitely here, and I think I grew on it over time, but getting into it at first, it was a little rough for me. There are long descriptive paragraphs in which the descriptions are kind of random. It'll be a character's feeling, and then something that they're seeing, and then a desire that the protagonist has, and then a street, and then a random thought. And at first, it was a little jarring for me, but as time goes on, I really grew to appreciate it. And having watched Midnight in Paris, I think that the guy who played Ernest Hemingway really captures his rhetoric and his speaking style as well as his writing style. But there's one passage in The Sun Also Rises that really stuck with me, and it reads as followed. I thought I had paid for everything, not like the woman pays and pays and pays, no idea of retribution or punishment, just exchange of values. You gave up something and got something else. Or you worked for something. You paid some way for everything that was any good. I paid my way into enough things that I liked, so that I had a good time. Either you paid by learning about them, or by experience, or by taking chances, or by money. Enjoying living was learning to get your money's worth and knowing when you had it. You could get your money's worth. The world was a good place to buy in. It seemed like a fine philosophy. In 5 years, I thought, it will seem just as silly as all the other fine philosophies I've had. Perhaps that wasn't true, though. Perhaps as you went along, you did learn something. I did not care what it was all about. All I wanted to know was how to live in it. Maybe if you found out how to live in it, you learned from that what it was all about. That line really sticks out to me because I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do. And during this pandemic era, it's truly the thing that I miss the most. And I get the feeling from Ernest Hemingway, from writing this book, that he feels the same way about travel. For me, just as a background, I'm in my early 20s, and although I think a lot of people have traveled more than me, I think that I've traveled more than most people my age. Than a lot of people my age, I'll say that. When I graduated from high school, I did a tour through Europe, starting in Rome, going to Florence, Venice, up to Switzerland, France, Paris, France, Versailles, and then ending in London, England. And that sort of inspired my love for travel. And then later on, I would do a summer seminar in college in Oxford in England. And then just a year and a half ago, literally right before the pandemic started in late 2019, I did a semester abroad in Dublin, Ireland. And I had to say that those were the greatest experiences of my life. I just love to be out in the world, experiencing new things, meeting new people, and it all started with my first trip to Europe, and ever since then, I just live my life planning my next trips. That being said, this quote really stuck out to me because it really nailed the feeling that I have that I never thought I had. And that's the idea of paying something, whether it be experience, time, or money, to experience the world and to enjoy the world around you. So obviously, tackling the money part, which he mentions in this excerpt, traveling is expensive no matter how you do it. The tour I went on, a bus tour I went on, was expensive. The abroad things I did were expensive. And just living in another country for an extended period of time is expensive, especially if you want to do fun things. Typically, if you want to go to see a historical site, if you want to get in, you have to pay for it. If you want to go to a pub, you have to pay money for beer, obviously. And it can be expensive because, the owners of these places take advantage of that. If you want to travel at all, plane tickets, train tickets, bus tickets are all expensive. But it raises the question, is the destination and the experience worth it in the long run? I would say for me that it is, with the full disclosure that I have the extra money and the extra means to do these things. That's obviously very important as well to mention. But the monetary payment aside, I want to go deeper into what he meant by paying through experience and paying through taking chances. I think some of my best experiences abroad are when I took chances. Obviously, when you travel at all, you're taking chances, especially if you're going to a new country. There's always risk of being taken advantage of because of your ignorance to that particular society around you. I look back to when I was in Oxford during my summer semester, and we had a 4-day break period in which me and four of my friends rented a car in Oxford and took it around the southern coast of England. First, obviously, starting in Oxford, then going to Canterbury, all the way across the UK, and then riding down that southern tip, all the way to Cornwall, which was a place I had never really known about, and ended up being one of, or maybe my favorite destinations I've ever been to. But there are risks with that as well. One of the ones we never expected were that when we rented the car and we needed gas, we had no idea how to open the gas tank in order to pump gas in. And we were sitting at the gas station for, a good 30 minutes on our phones, looking at the car type and trying to find out how to get access to the gas tank. But there were more extreme risks as well when we landed in Plymouth, England, which was a place I never heard of. We stopped at a pub and we were sitting there minding our own business, and then 4 locals came and sat down next to us and were quite aggressively telling us to follow them to go see the Plymouth dock where pilgrims who landed in Massachusetts left from to land in the U.S. And they were coming off as a little too friendly to be genuine, and after a while talking to them and talking them down, eventually they left us alone. But it was a weird experience of, you can get taken advantage of when you're a tourist. And if we had followed them and we were stupid, then who knows what would have happened. Probably would have gotten mugged, but who knows, maybe something worse could have happened as well. But eventually it led to us going to Cornwall, where we were in Polperro and Tintagel, which is where the legend of King Arthur started. And they were 2 of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. I love seaside towns and cities, and this has completely fit the bill for me. It was experiencing nature in its truest, most powerful form. There was a storm coming, and walking along the plains around the southern coast of Tintagel and feeling like the winds just bashing you as you're walking along was really awesome, and it's an experience I'll never forget. Of course, if I would have been too afraid to take the risk in the first place, then I never would have had the experience to begin with. But when you think about it, so many things could have gone wrong in that trip. We were on the road for literally 4 days straight, and something as simple as a flat tire or a slight car crash could have ended it immediately, and then who knows what would have happened after that. But the point is that everything worked out, and so I took a risk, I paid in taking a chance, and it worked out. So when Ernest Hemingway says that the world is a good enough place to buy into, I really do kind of agree with that, just based on my own experiences. I'm typically at my happiest when I'm traveling. I feel like you don't really understand how easily accessible the world is until you actually go out and try to pursue it, and it can be liberating to rent a car and go wherever you want, do a semester abroad, and be so close to all these new sites you've never been to. Living in Dublin for 4 months really opened my eyes up to how big the world is, because Dublin is one of the most popular cities in the world, and living in that city, it's sort of like a cultural melting pot. Living at UCD, the University College Dublin, was sort of like living in a UN in itself. In my friend group, I was the only American. I was the only native speaker of English, and my friend group consisted of people from all over the world. Sitting down in a pub, talking to them, sharing ideas, jokes, what have you, cultural differences, was just one of the funnest things I've ever done. And it shows that, despite the cultural and geographical differences, we all had no problems being friends, and we were all equally excited to explore Ireland. And we all had the same love of travel and experiencing new things, and that's kind of what bonded us. And I think that worldliness can be a very powerful thing and a very motivating thing. I now want to, as soon as the pandemic's over, I want to go back to Europe as fast as possible, maybe live there for a while, I don't know. But if I had never ventured out, taken the risk in going out into another country, and several other countries, then I never would have had this desire, and never would have had this new appreciation for how big the world is around you. That being said, I think that Ernest Hemingway brings up an interesting paradox in that traveling is fun, it's liberating, it's great, but the point of travel, and I think of why it's so fun and exhilarating, is because it takes you away from the mundaneness of your daily life. When you're traveling, you're on vacation, you're not working, you're not at school, and you're away from the pressures of your everyday life. But for these characters in Sun Also Rises, their freedom of travel, living in Paris, most of them are American or British, but their freedom of traveling and living in Spain and Paris becomes their mundane life. They live there for so long that it loses its specialness. And with that said, once it loses their specialness, then their real personalities, or not their real personalities, but the problems of their mundane lives kind of start to creep in again. Many of the characters feel inadequate, self-conscious, and all of that kind of comes to a head when they're in Spain and when they're in France, because the specialness of being there is gone, and all they can think about is their own life standings and their lack of satisfaction in their life standings. Brett and Jake and Michael and all the characters find brief relief in the fun of the riding of the bulls, but once that's over, once the thrill of that is over, they are reminded back of who they are and of their own problems they have in their lives, and it's inescapable. It asks me the question of, is there such thing as too much traveling? Traveling is supposed to be a break, but when that's all you do, like what these characters do, it loses its fun, and it just becomes every day to them. It's mundane, it's not special anymore, and it might as well just be their everyday life. And that's a weird thought to me, because as someone who wants to live in Europe someday, the thought of it losing its specialness is definitely weird to me. It doesn't seem too true, but it's definitely something in the back of my mind now. Granted, I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve in World War I, obviously, but so there's, personality differences there, but it definitely made me think of that at the same time. So that's my discussion for the day. I talked a lot about myself, but I think it was important for why this book has a special connection to me. I hope that you found this conversation interesting, or at least different from maybe other reviews for this book, but it really hit me. This book really hit me in many ways because I felt so connected to some of the characters and to Hemingway's writing style here, because anything to do with traveling, especially right now, or I miss it so badly, this sort of escapism is great for me. But, it offers escapism briefly, but then it takes it away from you as well, which I thought to be really interesting. And definitely a reason why this book will stick with me for a very long time, I think. So that's my video. I really hope you liked it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my friends' YouTube channels. I'll leave a link in the description below. My friend Tyler Talks just did a video on a really depressing book, which I can't think of right now, but it's a good video. I watched it, and he did a ranking of Haruki Murakami books. No, not a ranking, a beginner's guide to Haruki Murakami, which is very good. And my friend Drunzo, who you all probably know because all of you were subscribers to him, he just did a video on Moby Dick. It's a very good video as well. He knows what he's talking about there, so I think you'd like that too. I have videos as well you should check out. I did a why writing advice on Booktube is terrible, or bad, or whatever. It's terrible, but you should watch that video. And I did a video, speaking of The Lost Generation, I did a video on The Great Gatsby, which is excellent, and it was misunderstood for its time. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of my discussion in the comments below. If you agree, disagree, if you read the book, how it hit you. Am I wrong in my interpretation? Let me know, please. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.